Point 9, I believe it's incredibly important to have people-to-people cooperation, and not only governments. We must stop having the idea that we ask our governments to do things for us. We need a completely different global democracy in which human beings, citizens all over the world, act through, under, and above national governments. That's what I call the transnational. That's why our foundation is called the transnational one, going through the national level. Don't ask your government to do everything you'd like it to do. One, it doesn't. Two, it makes you passive. It makes you inactive. It makes you shy away from your responsibilities. We would like to see, and that's what we argue, some of us are already practicing it in the board of the TFF, we would like to see scholarships to young Iraqis coming to Europe and getting an education, because there's been a tremendous brain drain out of Iraq. A really tremendous. The best brains have left the last 20 years. Because of Saddam's cage, and because of the international sanctions cage, and the third cage, the war. Now, how do we help these people to come back? How do we help the wonderfully otherwise well-educated Iraqis who have the best educational system in the Arab world to come back to Iraq and help it themselves to rebuild it? By offering them free education wherever they can get it in the Western world. Thousands of scholarships to these people, and vice versa, ordinary citizens, NGO groups, unemployed nurses, whatever have you, priests, social workers from the West. Give them an opportunity, pay their trip and all that, and let them work together, people to people, with the Iraqis as a manifestation of a human solidarity. We can travel more than ever. We can work together on the internet. We can work with Iraqi youth on the YouTube, etc., etc. There are thousands of things that can be done even if you cannot go there yet. But the moment we can, we should be there. Point 10, which is the most difficult thing in terms of the big process. I would like to see something of a OSCE-like process over maybe 10 years. OSCE, the Organization of Security and Cooperation in Europe, which was set up by, or taken on the initiative of Urho Kekkonen, the Finnish president, saying we must have an organization in which the Eastern and Western Bloc can work together about military issues, economic issues, human rights issues, security, etc. Put things into basket but relate them to each other. Make it a huge program and negotiation structure for years ahead with governments, everyone involved from the Middle East, some of the Westerners, of course, and NGOs, not only governments again, but also NGOs, civil society groups. Accept that this will take a long time, but make a real effort at a comprehensive negotiation structure that integrates the big issues in the Middle East, including Iraq. But the real issue there is Iraq. It will be Iran when and if it's bombed. God forbid, but I belong to those who believe it will be bombed at some point. And the main conflict still remaining that between Israel and Palestine. We cannot solve problems in the long run in the Middle East without having some kind of new developments in the Palestine-Israel conflict. So whatever format it details, we have not said anything about that, but we're trying to point out the importance of the political process that cannot be done, by a one-day meeting in Washington shaking hands in front of cameras. It's an indecent way of doing peace work. If it were the intention of George Bush and Condoleezza Rice, etc. But it's an indecent thing to do to people who've been occupied for 40 years to say, we're doing a new beginning. So, to round it off, these are 10 points. As I said, anyone who has a capacity can begin to do something on point 3 or point 7 or point 10. The only thing we cannot accept is that nobody's doing anything for the future of the Iraqi people. The only thing we cannot accept is that the United States runs away with the initiative by keeping on being an occupying power because there are no alternatives to it. The worst things in the world are permitted to happen because people do not come up with alternatives to it. The moment people can say, wow, we could be all of us together in Iraq in a new way, why on earth are we doing this to the Iraqi people and keeping on occupying them? Then there will be a political move and push in the right direction. But as long as there's no alternative to continuing the occupation, it will continue until the Americans are beaten out of the place. And that might take 5 or 10 years more. We cannot let this suffering go on. But this is the most detrimental and harmful political conflict. And it's slightly shocking to see that the academic community in Japan too, and to a certain extent the media, are not more interested in this issue. But I've tried now my best to give you a kind of perspective of what we could think of. We are proud to be the third initiative, but that there are only third initiatives for peace in Iraq is a disgrace to the international community and civilization. The other two is the peace president of the Democratic Party in the US, Denis Kucinich, behind whose name it's already written, who don't have a chance. I tell you, if Denis Kucinich does not have a chance in the American political system, my judgment is that the United States does not have a chance. He's by far the most interesting candidate for what he says and how he thinks. Listen to what Denis Kucinich says, including what he says on YouTube. But he has a 12-point plan for withdrawal and for peace in Iraq, which is marvelous, including some of the points that we have actually taken from him and support him in doing. Secondly, there is a book that came out last year by Polk and McGovern, which is also a very, very elaborate, two diplomats, elaborate, well-argued plan for what should be done there, totally without influence in the media. Why does the media not monitor those who try to think differently, including this plan, which none of the international newspapers has been willing to publish? Those of us who are decent enough to think of the Iraqi people and how non-violence could change the world. Thank you very much for your patience with what I said.